On today's show, the Chicago Bulls off to a rocky start this season. A players-only meeting after the first game of the NBA season. What's going on in Chicago? Is it Billy Donovan's fault, or is there more to it than just that? Plus, what is the future for DeMar DeRozan in Chicago? Could a split be coming sooner rather than later? It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They're the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and then you watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks is so simple to play. You just make your picks and submit your entry in less than 60 seconds. It's that easy. They have quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types. It's what makes PrizePicks the #1 DFS sports app on the market. PrizePicks even offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday each Tuesday, where PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. You've got to check it out. If you've been trying to figure out a way to get into DFS, go check out PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA or code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks is daily fantasy sports made easy. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Bulls and Locked On NBA, PatTheDesigner. You can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts and on YouTube. Just search Locked On Bulls. And Pat, Chicago Bulls off to a 1-2 start to the season. Maybe not even when you go back and look at the last 2-minute report. I don't even know if they should have gotten that win against the Raptors based on couple blown calls there at the end of the game. But that's not where we're going to start. We're going to start with the fact that you go in, brand new season, a lot of optimism, a lot of hope. You get spanked by the Thunder on the first night, 124-104, and then you have a players-only meeting after the first game of the season. Walk me through what's going on with this Bulls team right now.
I mean, listen, you're in year 3 where continuity is supposed to be the main theme of this team, and it seems like the players don't know how to play with each other. There's been questions on Billy Donovan's offense the entire time. And we questioned, were they going to shoot more shots this year from the three-point line? They have shot more shots from the three-point line, but they haven't been able to knock them down at any consistent rate during the game. And the only thing consistent about the Chicago Bulls is the inconsistencies. And it's a team that has tried to do what many other teams have done, where we're going to have veterans in here while we have our young players take that next step. And the young players just haven't taken that next step. I mean, Patrick Williams has looked like a shell of the player that he looked like his rookie year defensively. He's a career 110 defensive rating player. This season to start, he's 129.3. So you basically have got nothing from one of your young starting pieces. On the other side, right, Kobe White has shown you some flashes of things, but you had 2 players last night, both play over 25 minutes in a game, and neither of them registered a single basket. The thing that a lot of these teams do where they have these veteran guys that mentor the next generation of guys coming up is those next generation of guys take the next step. And we just haven't seen that from the Bulls at any level. I mean, they sent Dalen Terry down, who was their 18th overall pick, to be with the Windy City Bulls. Julian Phillips isn't getting any playing time. He was basically the 35th pick in the draft this year. I mean, there's so much with this Bulls team that, if you look at it, yes, you can look at the small piece that is the continuity between Zach, DeMar, and Vooch, and that should be playing better by this point. But the biggest thing for me with this Bulls team is that nobody else on this team has taken a step. Small developments from Kobe, but outside of that, it hasn't been anything drastic that other teams have had.
I know you've praised Billy Donovan in the past, right, for what he's achieved with this Bulls team defensively, especially with Vucevic as your big man in the middle. But at this point, do you have to start maybe looking at it and say, is Billy Donovan the problem with this Bulls team?
Well, the issue, here's what I want a lot of NBA fans to understand, that maybe a lot of times they miss, is like, there are like 3 or 4 really elite coaches that go into a game in the NBA and say, that's not working. we're going to change that right now and come back to that in the next game because this is what our base is. Billy Donovan to me is a head coach that is very tied to this is the game plan. This is what we're going to come out with. And the adjustments, the same thing. It's not like a shock, right? Like the praise that I give to Billy Donovan is the fact that I can sit there and look at the lineups and be like, I see how this makes sense. The same things that we said about OKC though, where are your rotations? Why are you taking this guy out at this time? Is this just because he's supposed to come out at this time? Or is this because this is the best time to take him out, even though he's the guy right now that's cooking? I mean, they lost that Miami game last year when Kobe White and Andre Drummond were dominating, and then Billy Donovan inexplicably goes, well, we got to get our starters back in there. No, you just ride with the hot hands that you have right now because that's what the good teams do. That's what we saw Miami make an NBA Finals with last season, right? And Billy Donovan is very tied to the script that he comes out in the game with. And it seems to, I think most NBA fans overall, right, that when you need to make those in-game adjustments of, you know what, we're winning that matchup right there. He doesn't do that. Case in point, that first game you mentioned, the Oklahoma City Thunder, Billy Donovan and had one mismatch on the whole floor. Lou Dort on Zach LaVine isn't a mismatch. Jalen Williams on DeMar DeRozan isn't a mismatch. Chet can't guard centers. Nikola Vucevic didn't touch a basketball for 12 minutes. That's why you have Nikola Vucevic blowing up on the bench. He didn't take a NBA shot for 12 minutes, right? And so you look at situations like that. Andre Drummond cooked somebody. When's the last time we've said Andre Drummond cooked another player on the other side? It's disrespect to Drum. He's just not utilized in that way anymore in this modern NBA. And he literally was destroying Chet. And Billy Donovan refused to work through the paint. And it also goes to the players. You know, they weren't able to throw entry passes well into the paint with how they were shading over defensively. But when you look at those situations, you say, that's your mismatch. Go with that. And Billy Donovan consistently goes away from that. That's where a lot of Bulls fans, and I think a lot of fans throughout NBA history with Billy Donovan's career here have had issues with him, right? Like, there's the same things we were saying with KD and Russ.
Now, you know, you look at some of the offensive woes, the offensive struggles for this Bulls team, but then you also have Zach LaVine, who's one of the most electrifying offensive forces in the entire NBA. He dropped 51 points, but managed it in a loss. And also 51, but with no assists, Pat. Like, at one point, do you look at LaVine and you're just like, you're too one-dimensional of a player, and that he has to be able to evolve his game to be able to elevate his teammates and do more for this Bulls team offensively?
For me, I look at Zach's fit. Like, when you look at the numbers, right, it speaks to he was not passing the ball at all. But the other part of that nobody talks about is no one else could score the basketball. There was a point in time during the game where Zach LaVine, I think he had 19 in the first. He did have 19 in the first. And I want to say DeMar had like 7 or 8. And the DeMar and Zach were like 12 for 15. The rest of the team was like 2 for 26. Right. So, yes, I want to get my team more involved. Yes, I do want to see him elevate the rest of his team. And there is that question mark that comes in with Zach LaVine on, is he that number one guy that makes other guys better? And many people have talked about that with Zach. But the biggest thing in that game was just you have to knock down shots. And that's been the theme through the first 3 games. I love the fact that the Bulls shot 29 3-pointers a game last season. I don't care how bad of a team you are. You have almost no chance to win if you don't shoot enough 3-pointers. You don't have enough 3-point attempts in this modern NBA.
We're playing 90s
I'm glad
basketball.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, and I've said this about the Bulls a million times. The Chicago Bulls are running a 2005 offense in 2023. I'm glad to see us running a 2023 offense. You got to knock those shots down, though. Patrick Williams was supposed to be this 3-and-D guy. He was an elite 3-point shooter last season for the Bulls. Hasn't been that through 3 games this season, right? There's a lot of season left. Zach LaVine's been off for 2 games. Kobe White's been off for 2 games, right? Like, we're having the same conversations that we had last season, but it really just comes down to knocking down shots at the end of the day. And it sounds crazy, right? Like, what are we doing? But Billy Donovan is actually creating really good action to get open looks for this Bulls team. I mean, he's running basically like a high pick and pop type of situation where Vooch is at the top of the key in the high post, hands the basketball off to Zach or DeMar. Torrey Craig or Patrick Williams is setting a screen that opens up an option for 2 other players to be able to get a shot off. and of course your open 3-point shooter, that's good action. That's good NBA, basketball there for the modern NBA. But doesn't help if whoever's the wide open guy doesn't knock the shot down.
One of those continuity pieces, and maybe a piece that maybe not be a continuity piece moving forward. There's some question marks about DeMar DeRozan's future, right? With some reports that they've been talking about an extension, but according to Shams Charania of the Athletic, both sides are kind of far apart on these talks. Now, DeMar is in his final year of his contract. At what point, and kind of obviously this is probably predicated by the Bulls' success or lack thereof this season, but at what point do you have to look at, hey, maybe we've got to break up this trio, maybe we have to start looking at some options for moving on from DeMar to get a return before potentially losing him for nothing if he's not set on hunkering down in Chicago for the long term?
No, I think that that's something that you could see come here pretty quick because even the quote from Zach LaVine today, and I'm trying to pull this quote up here. I think I had it over on the Locked On Twitter, maybe not. But basically what Zach is saying is, that listen, they love each other. They're all best friends. They all really enjoy playing basketball with each other, but they realize that this is a business and that in business, he said, it's our third year here together. We know how this business is. We all love each other. DeMar's one of my best friends. We talk all the time, but we have to figure out how to make this thing work. And that to me shows a realization of, hey, listen, this is great. This is fun. I love playing with my friends. But at the end of the day, if we don't make this work, we're not going to have much time here to figure this out. And I think something interesting with the Bulls is they get tested really quick, really early. Their first 30 games, they play 30 games basically in 61 days, or 31 games in 60 days. So they're playing a ton of basketball over the first 3 months of the season. And with all of that, they're playing pretty much the toughest schedules in the NBA the entire way through. If we get to 15 games and it continues to look like this, and, listen, winning helps you get closer together on a number. If you're losing, you're further apart. But if the Bulls come out of that stretch pretty much before the trade deadline, and you're sitting below 500, I think you're pretty much heading toward a situation where you're going to see the Bulls have to do what's best for the team in the long run moving forward, especially seeing as how, right, like maybe you can stomach having a DeMar DeRozan here if Patrick Williams or Kobe White are playing well, and you can say, well, we've got these long-term pieces, but you really don't have any long-term pieces on this team right now. You have question marks with literally every young player that this team has right now.
Can the Chicago Bulls resolve their offensive woes moving forward? How much longer will DeMar DeRozan be a part of this team, or is he going to be on the way out soon? You'll have us covered for all that and more over at Locked On Bulls. Pat, thanks for stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
No problem, man. Appreciate you.